Well, hello, everyone. We want to welcome you today to this webinar is a part of our series on manufacturing careers. And we want to send a specific thank you out to the Dayton Region Manufacturers Association, as well as Ohio College Tech Prep, for assisting us in making these webinars and helping us come to you with these specific career-focused webinars. So we're going to dive in today, and today we're going to be talking to Brian Smith. So I want to introduce Brian to you today. He is from Noble Tool, and we will be talking specifically about CNC programming today. So Brian, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
So let's start. Let's dive in, and can you tell us a little bit about your job? And how does it relate to the success of your company?
Okay, my job is a CNC programmer / engineer. I think the biggest thing is we have to figure out how to deliver a quality product on time while being cost conscious. And really, that's what it all boils down to, is the customer, what they want, need, and how are we going to do it and get it to them in a timely manner.
That's great. So bottom line is, a CNC programmer's job is really important to the success of the company. That's the bottom line.
Depending on what type of equipment you have and everything, you have to plan out the process ahead of time, the tooling, fixturing. So there's a lot involved up front, I guess.
A lot of planning to be able to get to the final product, and
Correct.
to do so, it sounds like in an efficient and an effective manner as well.
Yes.
So what does a typical day look like for the CNC programmer?
Well, just kind of piggybacking off the original statement there, you have to figure out what type of tooling you have, if you have that tooling. If not, you have to go a different direction possibly. You've got to figure out how to set the job up, how to hold and fixture the job. And most of our jobs are short runs because we're a tool company. So we don't have lots of repeat customers, you know what I'm saying? We don't do a lot of production work. So we kind of go on the fly as far as delivering the product and how we're going to process and what's the best way. The other thing you have to do too is keep an eye on, when you're running a job, you got to look at your tooling, your chips. Is that the right tool for the job? Is there a different way? You may start out one way and change directions, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it's all about the process and what's the best way to do it, the best way to run it, most cost-effective way. And sometimes you're limited on resources. You might not have the biggest machine with more horsepower and torque. So there's all those factors involved, I guess. So a lot of process.
So your day, it sounds like, starts with a lot of planning and programming of equipment, finding the tools and the logistics, for the entire process, and then checking progress along the way, making sure that what you want to have produced is actually being produced.
Right. Yeah. The quality end of it, also inspecting and making sure you're delivering exactly what the print calls out for. And sometimes in the tooling business, it's very, there's a lot of tight tolerances, depending upon the assembly of the part. You have true position, flatness, profiles. All these things are factors into, what goes into a part, just like the car you drive. Every part, there's more to it than the part. It's how it's assembled together. So there's a lot of tolerances that are tightened down to allow for the fit, form, and function, I guess is the best way to put it.
Right, because without that right fit, the piece isn't going to function as part of the system as it should. So
that's a good way of putting it. Yes.
Okay, great. So tell us about your history with Noble Tool, and where were you before that?
My history has actually only been for 5 months here. I had an opportunity to have more of a work-life balance, I guess you could say. And long story short, I've been in the industry for over 40 years. So kind of started out running a machine. I started going to night classes to get an engineering degree. And I've worked in engineering for probably 28 years, been a supervisor for 5 or 6 years. And I just kind of wanted to dial it back a little bit and get back to being creative with my hands, figuring out things on the fly. I'm not a desk guy, I guess is what I'm saying.
So being an operator, being a CNC operator is the perfect job for you if you don't want to sit behind a desk.
Yeah, and again, I do the upfront work too, the programming, the processing. So, that all plays into it. And sometimes I do run short runs of 10 pieces or 5 pieces. But it's not like I'm doing the same production every day. It's always different. It's always new most of the time. There's some repeat jobs, but yeah, it's more of a setup type of a guy. This job here I'm doing right now is kind of like a setup / engineer / programmer.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So what is the thing that you love most when you go to work every day, you get out of bed to go to work? What's the thing that you're most looking forward to?
Well, like I said earlier, I kind of switched jobs, here late in life, and I thought, what am I doing? But I like to be creative. Like I said, I like to get my hands in there. I like to figure out, okay, there's an issue with this job. Maybe we got to try a different tool or a different way to fixture it, or it can be anything with the setup as far as the collets could be bad, the holders could be bad. So you have to you're using your head. Number one, you're thinking, you're problem solving, and you're being creative. Like I said, I can't keep, that's who I am. I do it at home. I'm a home improvement guy. So I'm always trying to figure out how to do it in the best way. And my family and friends kid me all the time because I use micrometers when I'm making home improvement stuff with, I'm at home measuring things within thousands because that's just what I do. So it's kind of silly.
You want to make sure it's right. I get it. I get it. And that's really important in this job.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. So let's talk about, your number of hours a day, and maybe you just talk about it in terms of percentage. So how many hours a day are you in meetings versus working in groups versus sitting at a computer? How can you give us some percentages, an idea of, from a CNC operator's perspective, what is your percentage? What's that percentage of your day?
I would say currently in this job I'm in, the percentage is very minimal. It's me and another gentleman probably get together and put our heads together, but it's probably less than 20 minutes a day, to be honest with you. And then we kind of do our own thing. Now, in my previous career, I spent all kinds of times in meetings, bigger company I worked at before and stuff like that. And there's just all kinds of higher ups and you have to project managers and stuff. So we're kind of my role is kind of like project manager, engineer, programmer, setup guy. So currently here at Nobleville, I would say it's really maybe 20 minutes a day because we're always just trying to move on. We're not, we're a small company. We don't have time to have big meetings, I guess.
Right. Lots of focus on production and getting things out.
Delivery,
yeah.
Quality. Yes.
Absolutely. So what's the biggest challenge that you deal with every day?
The biggest challenge I think is at a small company is the resources or lack of, meaning anything from tooling to the type of machines, you're limited on a smaller scale here. And that's why we always try to do the best we can with what we have. And that's all part of the processing and figuring up front. But, at your bigger companies, I've worked at some large companies. I was always salary. I was in the engineering department, but the shops were union and stuff. So I couldn't get my hands on the machine as much, even though I wrote the programs because I wasn't allowed to. But there you have more resources, more tooling, more budget. So I would say the biggest challenge is just lack of that big resource from a smaller company. You know what I'm saying?
Which happens, I was going to say, which happens sometimes in a smaller company. but, and, you know, they're lucky to have somebody like you who's got a lot of experience in the business and knows how to be efficient and effective.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's, you know, they kind of hooked me up with a younger guy, and he's doing really well. He doesn't have a lot of machining experience, so I bounce a lot of things by him, and then he runs with it. And so him and I have been working well together,
Great.
and it's been
Great.
fun.
And you get to be a mentor and a coach at the same time, which sounds like it's one of the the best parts of the day.
That's right, my wheelhouse, because I used to coach even for the school system. I used to coach football and some basketball and stuff. So I really enjoy that, I guess.
Awesome.
That's another part of it.
Awesome. And I think we hit on this a little bit already. But it sounds like your work environment is primarily on the line. You know, watching production, you know, doing a little bit of programming, but, you know, watching to see how everything's going and if the job is coming out as it should. Did I interpret that right?
Pretty much, but we don't have a production line, I guess. Like I said, we do a lot of short run stuff.
Okay.
So it's, you know, we kind of do our own thing here. There's just a small group of CNC equipment, and then we have tool makers. So, you know, we kind of oversee it from the beginning to the end as far as the quick setup or run. And then sometimes we have to check it, you know, with our quality department. And sometimes we have to use the CMM machine and measure and gauge things. So, so yeah, it's like I said, we're kind of a jack of all trades, I guess. We kind of wear many hats.
Okay. That makes things exciting. That makes things exciting.
Yeah,
what about being on call? Is someone in your job typically on call in the position that you're in?
Where I'm at now, I'm not on call. My previous work experience, I was on call often. Yes, that was another reason why I kind of transitioned late in my career. But I have been on call, but not at this one, I guess is the answer.
Okay, so I guess it depends on the company, I would say, in terms of, you know, whether or not a CNC programmer would be on call.
Yeah, and typically they're not on call. Like I said, I was in just strictly a manufacturing engineer role before, where we were doing turnkeys for customers, and you know, you would get a call in the evening or on the weekend, and you know, you always had your laptop with you, so you kind of carried it with you 7 days a week. That's kind of another reason why I transitioned into, you know, being a setup guy, basically, / engineer programmer.
Okay. Great. So what types of education does the typical CNC programmer need? What do you need to be an entry level to get a position as a CNC programmer?
You know, it can go two different directions, actually. And I really think, and this is kind of how I started, way back in the early 80s, I went on night shift to learn the CNC machine because I knew I had to make myself more valuable being a young man. And I sacrificed going on night shift for like 3 years while being married and having young children. And I also went to school. So, it took me a long time because I had a family. I was working a full-time job. And back then you couldn't log on and do your classes online. So, but to me, the most important thing is having mechanical aptitude. A lot of people can come in and learn things and troubleshoot because they're just mechanically inclined. I think that's probably the most important. And then if you want to get into the programming end of it, yes, it's good to have an associate's degree along with the experience. To me, that's the best, not just the degree by itself. I think if you have the experience and at least a 2-year degree, you're getting the best of both worlds.
Perfect. And it sounds like the willingness to learn, willingness to dive in and try something new. Yeah,
you can't be afraid. I think one of my things, one of my mottos for years was always, you can't be afraid to fail, because that's how you learn. So, you know, you get ribbed a lot in the shop, you know, hey, you know, you broke this, you programmed this, it was wrong. And, you know, hey, you know, when people tell you can't do it, my personality is I keep going until I figure it out. So
absolutely. And it sounds like everybody's been there. There's probably not an operator out there who hasn't broken something in the past. So, and you kind of answered this question in your previous one, and that is, you know, what kind of education do you need? And So it sounds like, a certification or a 2-year degree would be great
Yes,
as a starting point. And then, the sky's the limit in terms of what you can do
that's
as the next step.
that is true. Very true.
Okay. And wanting that, having that desire to learn is very important.
Yes, yeah, because the sky is the limit. Like I said, I worked my
Yeah.
way up. I did a lot. A lot of sacrifice goes along the way if you want it.
Right. So when you look for new employees, what is that one thing? What's that skill that you value most in new employees who are coming into the company?
Boy, that's like I said, willingness to learn, number one,
Mhm.
and are you reliable today? I mean, I hate to say it,
Mhm.
it's a kind of
That's
a different
important.
world, but are you reliable? Are you going to show
Yeah.
up?
Yeah.
Because if you're reliable and I can count on you and you want to learn, that's who I want. If you're just kind of going through the motions and this is, you can kind of tell just by talking to someone, what you always ask about their hobbies and different things and what they like to do. And you can kind of find a go-getter, by asking certain questions.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So the willingness to learn and reliability, very, very important.
Yes.
Awesome. So let's say you're talking to a young person right now who's trying to discern, manufacturing career or something else. What would you say? What would you say to them?
This statement right here is really huge to me because I don't think we promote it enough in schools. My wife and I, we have grown kids. I've got 6 grandsons. We said if we had a child today in school, we would promote skilled trades, whether it's electrician, heating and air, machining, programming, because people my age are filtering out of the system and
Mhm.
you're losing a ton of experience and just, you know, it's kind of it's more of what's the word I'm thinking of? Everybody can get on the computer today and they can play the video games and they can navigate a computer, but can they make things with their hands? Can they troubleshoot? Can they problem solve? But we talk about this all the time. We said the CTC at Montgomery County or Butler, or wherever, let's start those kids as freshmen and sophomores or something. Why are we waiting till they're juniors? They're wasting
Mm.
time because they're not going to go to college. And I've got people that teach out there in robotics and stuff, and I'm like, man, what can we do to promote this in the school system? And
Mhm.
I'm just a huge advocate of that. I just don't know how we do it. Uh, you're seeing a little more ads on TV about skilled trades and stuff, but I think if you just sit down and tell these kids, hey, listen, you can go to college, you can get a 4-year business degree and be $100,000 in debt, or you can go to work and use your hands and think and problem solve, and you can do. The sky is the limit. You can climb all the way up. You can do side jobs. You can do
Mhm.
heating and air on the side. You can do electrical work on the side, and you're not in debt. So I
Mhm.
mean,
And you've got a livable wage. So I think probably if I had to recap what I heard was, encouragement, get kids into the shops, get them to see what the opportunities are, especially kids who like to work with their hands
yeah,
and solve problems.
yeah, and I think no one thinks about this. When you get on an airplane, somebody has manufactured those parts. I mean,
Right.
well, I don't want to say people don't talk down to manufacturing, but everything you touch, somebody has made and somebody's inspected and somebody has processed and engineered.
Mhm.
And it's really very rewarding and self-satisfying.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. So what about when a teacher talks to? So, the good news about this video is there's going to be a lot of teachers that potentially watch this too, so that they're listening to you and understanding, what happens in a manufacturing company and what happens specifically around CNC programming. So what do you want teachers to say to students?
I really just wish that they would say, hey, college is not for everyone. And this is a
Mhm.
great career field. especially like I said, I mean, I hate to keep going back to my age, but people my age and older, when we retire, we need the youth to come in and, take over. And I feel like because it's not been promoted for the last 35 years, I could probably work the rest of my life if I wanted to, because I would always have a job and my experience and my skill level. But I just wish that it would be talked up. I would love the teachers to say, hey, here's a Boeing 737. Here's some of the parts that these guys have made. And this guy, just give examples of what you can do and feel good about it. I just don't think it's promoted. Like I said, I really wish skilled trades were promoted by the school system in general.
Well, thank you for this webinar, because now we're going to be able to promote it a little bit more.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Well, our pleasure.
All right.
So what's the typical career path? You said sky's the limit. So a youngster can come into your company as with a certificate or an associate's degree, and what next?
Again, we're a very small company. We have 22 or 3 people. And I would say at a bigger company, you kind of come in with some mechanical aptitude. You've taken a class or two, how to read micrometers. Your willingness to learn, that's probably one of the most important things. And you start running parts in production, and you show your boss or the company or whatever that, I'm dedicated, I'm committed. From way back in the 80s, I always ran good parts. I was making edits to programs before I even started taking classes. And I got in trouble because way back then I was in a union, but I knew what I wanted to do. So I kept doing, because I was an athlete, I always was competitive and liked to achieve. So like I said, come in, your willingness to learn, and then do well, show up on time. Don't be horse playing or screwing around. And just do a good job. When you show up all the time and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're showing that, hey, you can invest yourself in me because I'm going to do well for your company. And then you just start making those little climbs. You could go from being an operator to being the setup guy, the lead guy. And that's a huge jump in pay when you jump from the operator to the lead guy, because you're the guy they're coming to, because you know how to fix things. And then, like I said, then you can start taking classes on programming. And nowadays you can get online and start, it's just so totally different today. It's really easier today to learn. If you got a computer at home, get on there and say, you can better yourself quicker, I guess is the word. But
absolutely. And it's really starts with doing your job and doing it to the best of your ability. To be able to show, that you're interested.
Yes, and you can climb all the way up to being a manufacturing manager. I've known a couple people. I've known actually one of the last guy I worked for. He had no college education, but he was so good at what he did, and he paid his dues, and he was a manufacturing manager of a large company here in Dayton. And great guy, smart guy, and I really enjoyed working for him. I just didn't like the travel and the long hours. It's about work-life balance for me today. So
awesome. So lots of opportunity. If your head is really in the game and you're doing the best that you can. So what are starting wages for a new someone new to the business? What would that be?
Are you talking about like an entry-level operator or
yes,
just starting out? I mean, I'm guessing this is without overtime. You can come in at $35,000, $38,000 a year. That's without overtime. Most shops work overtime, and sometimes it's mandatory, sometimes it's not. So you can make $50,000 or $60,000 a year entry level if you want to. And again, it goes back to: are you reliable? Are you accountable? Can I depend on you?
Right.
And then, like I said, that's just starting out, and you're not in debt, for 4 years of college, or your parents aren't. Let me correct myself.
Right.
So, but just a 40-hour work week, you can make probably easy $38,000 a year without any overtime.
That's great, with lots of opportunity for overtime, it sounds like.
And when you get all that experience, that you're really valuable, because now you can start, checking around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what did we miss, Brian? What in our conversation, what did we miss?
I think we kind of covered it. And like I said, my biggest pet peeve is we have to promote this somehow, some way. And I would personally love to see the CTCs start at least by their sophomore year. Why are we waiting till they're juniors? Because they're wasting time. And I have nothing against education, but if someone's not going to college, let's steer them the right direction and make them valuable early.
Yeah,
earlier.
let's get them in earlier and tell them what's within the realm of the possible.
Yes.
Well,
sky's the limit.
absolutely. And Brian, we really, really appreciate your time today. Thank you for your transparency and your openness. And we can clearly tell you're passionate about what you do and you're passionate about the manufacturing industry. Thank you for sharing that with the teachers who are going to watch this webinar and the students as well, who are also going to watch this webinar. I think we're definitely going to show them another side of the business and another side of the skilled trades through this webinar. So thank you again. Thank you to Noble Tool. Thank you to DRMA and also to Ohio College Tech Prep.
All right. Thank you, Cassie. Thanks, Sandy.